to join us, so we're going to check out whether we really are ready for the future. Okay? Whoever is helping, Dr. Can you put Nandini online? Yes, hello Nandini, I hope you can hear us. Okay. Let me introduce her anyway. Check the volume. Are you okay? So Dr. Nandini Nayak is a seasoned human-centered digital Let me correct. One nimsham. Before, let me talk. Okay. Let me repeat. Nandini Nayak is a seasoned human-centered digital transformation leader. I hope you all understand. Currently serving as a Presidential Innovation Fellow in Washington, D.C. Previously, she held senior executive roles at Accenture and Hewlett-Packard in California. Nandini has a proven track record for driving large-scale human experience-centric transformation programs, leveraging leading technology platforms. Her expertise spans strategy, leadership development, and design and development methodologies for architecting and delivering innovative solutions that drive positive impact. Nandini holds a PhD in cognitive psychology from the University of California, which informs her approach to understanding human behavior and decision-making in the context of digital transformation. Her academic training was from the Department of Psychology, Bangalore University, as well as from NIMHANS. So she has followed the same route, but then from clinical psychology, she switched over to organizational. She has been in the field of technology and computers, and I do not know whether it still exists, but is there a paper on computer applications in psychology now? Yes? Okay. Yes, I know. I started that long ago. So actually, Nandini will be talking about that in her talk today. So Nandini, over to you. Yes.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's lovely to see faces in India. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay. So here I go. I'm going to try to share my slides. So before I begin, thank you, Dr. Srinivas. I heard you're the current head of the department for giving me this opportunity, and for Sudha and all my previous professors who are here. It's a pleasure to be here, even though it's the middle of the night in California. So I hope to be sensible, and hopefully what I'm saying is going to make sense. So I'm sharing my slides right now, so please let me know if you can see what I'm sharing.
Yes.
Are you able to see?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So Sudha asked me to actually talk about a little bit about myself in terms of how I ended up becoming a technologist when I started out as a clinical psychologist in the Department of Psychology. And the journey has been interesting because while I intended to be a clinical psychologist, once I came to America, it was the first sort of wave of artificial intelligence, and I got and more smart. And I got interested in how people use technology and became sort of a human factors, human interface designer. And through that path, became an information architect and then a strategist. Then I ran a practice at Accenture. In this place, currently at the White House running working on artificial intelligence policy, I don't think you would have, I would have imagined that future for myself. So I tell the young students in the room that even though you start your career in psychology, it can take you many places. So please think about that as I talk to you about the subject of technology, psychology, and design. So let me see. I'm not able to move the slides. Are the slides moving?
No.
Okay. Okay.
It is being
Now,
streamed
can you
outside.
see?
No, it's not moving.
Are you able to?
It is.
Wait. Are you able to see now?
No,
We are able to see, but
no, which is not
it's not
shift.
changing. The slides are not changing.
Can you open? Can you open the PPT completely? Okay. Okay.
Can you see slide 2 now, or you want to share for me?
No, we are still on slide 1.
I have moved to slide 2.
No.
Maybe you should share, so that makes it easier.
Yeah, share. Yeah, we'll share it then. Yeah, can you go back to her?
Sorry about,
No.
like I said, technology.
It's still it's growing.
Yeah, we can see the next slide now. Yes.
No, that's the last slide. Thank you.
Can you see this one?
Yes.
It says technology innovation
Yes.
is unstoppable.
Yes.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I wanted to start out by talking about technology innovation and what is technology innovation actually. It is actually something that gives us human superpowers, isn't it? And it has accelerated since, in the past 250 years. The first waves were about industrialization, it was about steam engines, it was about mobility through cars, and we got a super of innovation has accelerated so much that now technology is sort of an inherent part of our lives. And I would ask each of you, who currently, maybe many of you looking at your phones or texting your family, if I took your phone away from you, you would probably feel like you've lost a limb, right? And you would be very anxious about not having your phone with you. So this technology has inherently invaded our lives in such a way that it has transformed how we work, how we play, how we enjoy entertainment, how we interact with each other and with the world. And while it has given us these superpowers, it has also disrupted the normal ways that we live. So one of the things that we have to consider in terms of mental well-being is has the pace of technology allowed us to stop and think about what it is doing to our lives. And today's presentation, I'm really wanting us and the young students in the room to really begin to think about mental well-being and how technology is inherently now a part of the environment that we have to consider. So let's talk a little bit about the psychology of technology use, right? So I looked up some Indian research that showed that 95% of Indian adolescents regularly use digital devices like mobiles or tablets, and approximately 30% are exhibiting problematic usage patterns. And when I say problematic, it probably means that they are sort of not able to tear themselves away from the technology. They do everything with their heads down. Recently, I was sitting in a public transport, and I saw two young people, a girl and a boy, each looking down at their phones, sitting next to each other. And when I peeked over, I saw that they were both looking at dating apps and trying to find somebody online that they could meet. But they didn't look at each other. And then they got down from the bus and went their individual ways. This is the digital age in which we live, where people are not looking at each other, they're looking through the phones and trying to find connection. This is especially so in the West, and I'm sure it is the same in India as well. So this addiction to digital devices and a dependence on social media as a way to sort of identify yourself and to be liked is becoming inherently not a good thing. So I think you should be thinking about digital.
We have lost you, Nandini, 1 minute. Unmute. You have, okay, she had,
the internet and the latest age of intelligence, being able to democratize education and provide these technology tools to a broader set of people. At the same time, we need to watch out for and be vigilant about how educational technology and screen time affects the physical, social, cognitive, and emotional development. Research to show that all of it is good and some of it might not be that good. At the same time, technology affords a very powerful way to get people to focus on mental health and even on physical health. You know, I myself take a yoga class taught in India over Zoom, so there are clearly benefits. But I've heard of applications like Visa and Evolve and Manas, and in the US it's Headspace, to promote mental well-being and reach broader populations, right? So technology can actually be a part of your life and be part of your mental well-being as well. So there is a space for psychologists to begin to think about how do you design the technology in a way that it is actually promoting mental health. The last thing that I'd like to, that's top of mind for me as I'm working primarily in figuring out how, in the age of artificial intelligence, how do we set the right policies and also think about how we are human-centered in how we design these technologies in the context of human life and work. So it is I think especially with this latest set of technologies that has arrived with generative AI, technology is able to cognitively match what human beings can do. And in that process, we really have to be thinking about designing the technology as an augmentation to human capability rather than think about it as a replacement. And how you design that requires psychologists and computer scientists and others to be working together. So this is the field that I have been in called human-centered design or human-computer interaction for the last 30 years. It is an interdisciplinary domain that brings psychologists, anthropologists, computer scientists, information architects together to design technology that enhances rather than erodes mental well-being. When I started out, it was primarily trying to improve technology, improve computer systems, improve computer software, improve internet websites, mobile applications to make them easier to use, to make sure that people are able to accomplish their tasks in a better way, to give them a sense of mastery and personal growth through it. But with the advent of social media and a broader set of applications, we really need to be very deliberate about how we design technology. And in the middle, I have a figure here that talks about the various methodologies that come to bear to actually design technology for human use. So the balance between the human needs that we have for feeling in control of our lives, to grow, personally, to feel rewarded, to have easy access and feel like we know what we are doing with the tools, to make sure that all populations can use it and do not feel excluded, and feel a sense of belonging alongside this technology are very human needs. And from a design perspective, you want to make sure that when you design technology, it is human-centered. It takes into consideration the limitations of human information processing, takes into consideration, how people make decisions, how, technology is habit forming. All of the human-centered capabilities have to be considered. In addition, you have to test and learn. You cannot assume that because companies out there are putting out the technology that somehow the technology is good for you. So I think the empathetic way of looking at technology and making sure leaders of businesses are thinking about the human impact of these technologies is critical. At the same time, making sure that the immense amount of personal data that's now going to be available in these systems is safeguarded in a way that it does not, take away the privacy and security of individuals. So there's a dark side to technology that needs to be controlled. And we have to design these systems with humility and continuous optimization. So this is a new field, and I would like to think that the Bangalore University should begin to have courses that actually think about how psychologists can begin to think about being part of human-centered design and bring technology awareness and technology savviness to psychologists, because this is going to be part of how we begin to design human well-being in the future. So I leave you with a thought. Technology creators and mental health advocates have the power to shape how people interact with digital spaces. And digital spaces are now going to become sort of inherent to our homes, to our lives, to our transportation, to everything that we do. And let's make sure those interactions are healthier and more humane. So if you want to talk to me about what this field is a bit more, you can contact me. But I thought I would leave you with that thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandini. Thank you. So we did manage to hear her. So that was the last and a completely different field. So psychology seems...
Yes.
Can I talk?
Did you hear all of that?
Okay. All right. So what have we concluded from all this? There seems to be a paradox. We have kept on emphasizing that there are a lot of opportunities for all of you. But the very fact that you all have opportunities means that society has problems. Right? Because unless it is positive psychology. So the very fact that there is a future for all of you does not reflect well on the rest of the world around us. So somehow we have to bridge this gap. It need not be only mental illness. Taking positive psychology, taking Indian psychology, taking technology for the betterment of people, taking sustainability as part of our lives are other ways by which we can spread the flavor of psychology everywhere.